Two. A transformation is underway in the community of Venice Beach. It's becoming known as Silicon Beach thanks to a number of tech companies that are moving to the area. Yana Kay has more.
This Frank Gehry building in the shape of large binoculars is Google's new campus. But it's not located in Silicon Valley, but in Venice Beach. In fact, more than 25 companies have moved to LA's west side and Venice, earning the area the nickname Silicon Beach.
We think it's great for Venice. It's great for the west side of LA. We think it can generate a lot of jobs. It can really change the dynamic here. We want to grow, but we want to grow in the right way.
Hundreds of residents and community members came out to meet their tech neighbors at a recent town hall and showcase at Westminster Elementary.
We're dealing with the moment and tomorrow. The future is here now. You're dealing with the whole notion of social media and how it connects all of us.
Top executives from companies including search giant Google and local startups like Mogreet were on hand to introduce themselves and talk about what brought them to Silicon Beach.
Venice is this cultural icon. You think about everything that's been innovated in Venice, from Dogtown to movie production. We said, let's put Mogreet at that epicenter.
Nearly 24 tech companies set up booths to show off their products and ideas to about 400 attendees. For local residents, Silicon Beach represents a boom for the area.
I love the fact that Silicon Valley has now relocated to Southern California and we have Silicon Beach. And I'm excited for the vendors, I'm excited for the jobs.
Company executives say the Venice community offers an environment for companies to grow and innovate.
For us to be here is great because, you know, of all the diversity and the collective nature of the people that are around.
And it's that diversity the Venice Beach community hopes will drive even more growth. I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
Google's Venice location is more than 100,000 square feet and it employs more than 6,000 workers. Every year, LA firefighters hit the streets hoping to get a handout, all for a good cause. The Fill the Boot campaign is raising money that could change the lives of children with muscular dystrophy. Anna Marcos reports.
So you grab a couple of bills like this, and you go like that, and there you go. A cure for muscular dystrophy. $1 bill at a time.
Councilmember Tony Cardenas hopes the live demonstration encourages more Angelenos to give to the Fill the Boot campaign. The annual drive is the LA Fire Department's effort to contribute to the Muscular Dystrophy Association's national campaign. Every year for several days, firefighters hold out their boots at various LA street corners, hoping to fill them up with cash for a good cause.
In 1954, two firefighters in Nevada wanted to do something for Jerry's kids. So they grabbed their boots and headed out into the community and in hopes of inspiring the public to fill their boots with money. Today, that tradition continues.
The money raised helps fund research, medical treatment, and summer camps for children like Jojo and Sarah, children who were born with a debilitating muscular condition and who often end up in wheelchairs.
These kids don't always have special places to go, and for them to be able to go to camp starting at age 6 is a very big deal for them because they are not able. I can't take her to the park.
This huge mega boot may not quite fit Jojo's tiny feet, but it's perfect for raising money. In the last 6 years, Angelenos have stuffed close to $900,000 in these boots.
This year, with the community's help, should put us over $1 million total.
$1 million puts children like Sarah and Jojo a lot closer to seeing a cure for muscular dystrophy in their lifetime, and maybe even growing up to fit in those big fireman's boots. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
While we should always be environmentally aware, Earth Day is a day that serves as a reminder that our resources are limited and that what we do on this planet can make a difference. Rasha Goel takes us to 2 Earth Day events hoping to do just that.
From planting trees to generating water, Angelenos throughout the city celebrated Earth Day in various ways at various locations. Those at Earth Day Latino, held at the Los Angeles Historic State Park, witnessed the unveiling of a replica of the Zanja Madre water wheel.
This is an artwork that was commissioned to celebrate the old historical water wheel that existed on the side of this park in the very beginning of the history of the city. It was a water wheel that moved the water along from the Los Angeles River to the reservoir that was in the center of the city.
Professor Fabian Wagnister also says that the water wheel was possibly the city's first engineering mechanism, dating back to the late 1700s, early 1800s.
Trying to bring back history back to the community, so that's really interesting.
By changing our mannerisms and the way we behave, we can help heal this earth with little individual steps.
And over at Euclid Elementary School in Boyle Heights, students planted trees donated by the city's Million Trees program in honor of Earth Day. They were also acknowledged for being the top recycling school in all of District 14.
The more we recycle, the better we're going to leave this planet for those that come after us.
2 of them are fruit trees, so maybe next year, this time we'll have fruit in our native garden.
A lesson on nature to instill in students the importance of preserving the environment today for tomorrow. In Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
Items stolen from your vehicle may be among those recently recovered. Your help is needed to track down the teardrop rapist, and the father of LA's mural movement is remembered. These stories and more in City Beat. Detectives from LAPD's Hollywood division say an observant resident helped them nab the man suspected of burglarizing personal property from people's vehicles. Police say the resident saw a suspicious individual and copied down his license plate after noticing the car resembled the one captured on surveillance camera breaking into his friend's car just a few days prior. That hunch led police to Sean Ray.
He has prior arrests for burglary, burglary from motor vehicle, and other theft-related crimes. Also determined that he was on felony probation for receiving stolen property.
Among the items recovered from Ray's apartment were $24,000 in cash and high-end camera equipment. Police are asking for victims to come forward so they can reclaim their stolen property. For more information, call Officer Michael Klee at 213-972-2947. Police have released several composite sketches created from different victim accounts of the so-called teardrop rapist, believed to be responsible for 28 sexual assaults since 1996. Police say the latest attack occurred on November 10th against a 15-year-old girl near Adams Boulevard and Normandy Avenue. While the suspect may or may not still have a teardrop tattoo, police say the suspect is a light-skinned Hispanic male with brown eyes and hair and is 27 to 40 years old. If you have any information, you're asked to call 1-877-LAPD 24/7. The city proclaimed April 20th David Alfaro Sequitos Day to honor the famous artist considered to be the father of LA's mural movement. Sequitos created America Tropical mural at Overa Street, which was painted over in 1933.
In 1933, it is alleged that concerned about the image of the new Mexican marketplace, now known as El Pueblo, the officials at that time asked for the segment of the mural to be painted over. By 1938, the remainder of the work had been whitewashed in an act of censorship.
The city is paying $6 million and the Getty Conservation Institute close to $4 million to help restore the mural, which is located on the wall of the Italian Hall at El Pueblo. Alliance Gertz Ressler High School, a public charter school in Council District 1, recently celebrated its recognition as a National Blue Ribbon School. That's a designation given to schools that demonstrate growth in student achievement. The school was one of 2 high schools in California to receive the award. Completing a marathon is impressive for anyone, but Gil Reyes tells us about 2 very special local athletes whose determination to run and finish the LA Marathon is inspiring others to overcome life's many challenges.
Rousing applause in council chambers for Antoinette Mendoza and Angela Armenta, the first women with Down syndrome ever to complete the LA Marathon, or any marathon for that matter.
Was it hard for you to do?
No, it's easy.
Antoinette's time, 7 hours and 39 minutes. Angela followed at 12 hours, 30 minutes. Angela was also diagnosed with a hole in her heart when she was 5.
But after receiving a medical clearance from her doctor, she was determined to succeed, and succeed she did.
The group ARC, short for Activities, Recreation, and Care for the Developmentally Challenged, encouraged the women. Team leader Brett Bachman became so inspired by them, he also ran the marathon, something he never even considered or even thought was possible until recently.
They're just so inspiring that I did it, and there was no way I could not complete it. You know, I just tried to tuck in right behind Antoinette and keep up as much as I can, and I did complete it, and they were my inspiration.
An incredible accomplishment, no doubt, but both runners say they're not satisfied yet. In fact, they say they want to run again next year.
But certainly if these two women who have overcome so much and shown such strength can finish a marathon, then certainly each of us can draw strength from that, I think, as we try to get through each day.
Lessons learned, athlete or not. At City Hall, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Councilmember Paul Krikorian also honored ARC for increasing awareness about those with disabilities. In this week's list of things to do, an exhibit that explores the relationship between photography and fame as we know it today. And one councilman's office turns into an art gallery, also an LAPD carnival that's fun for the whole family. Without still photography, would there be such a thing as celebrity and fame? A new exhibit at the Getty Museum explores the idea of celebrity. The Portraits of Renown, Photography and the Cult of Celebrity is on display now through August 26th. The exhibit explores photography from its invention in 1830 through the age of Andy Warhol, Polaroids, and beyond. The Getty is located at 1200 Getty Center Drive. More info can be found at getty.edu/museum. The office of Councilmember Joe Buscaino has partnered with Gallery New Artig in San Pedro to present local artists from the 15th District in rotating exhibitions. Objects in nature will be on display from now through July 27. The exhibit features original artwork by Stuart Hamilton, Gil Mayers, Lowell Nickel, and Michael Stearns. Councilman Buscaino's office is located at City Hall in room 425 at 200 North Spring Street. For more information on New Artig, go to gallerynewartig.com. Don't miss the LAPD West Valley Division's annual carnival Friday through Sunday on May 4th, 5th, and 6th in front of the police station at 19020 Van Owen Street in Reseda. There will be rides, games, food, and lots of kids' activities. Pre-sale tickets are available at West Valley Station for rides, 10 rides for $20. The carnival runs from 5 to 11 p.m. on Friday and 2 to 11 on Saturday and Sunday. This is a great way to get to know your local police and to foster good relationships with your local officers. And remember, you can find this information on our Facebook page. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. Art isn't just something to be looked at, but it's something to be touched, listened to, drawn on, and played with. At least that's the case with one unique installation called Play Me, I'm Yours. Who said playing piano had to be an indoor experience? An art installation called Play Me, I'm Yours has put vividly decorated pianos, 30 of them to be exact, in high traffic areas throughout the Southland. On the installation's launch day, 30 pianists simultaneously performed complete preludes from Bach's The Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1, for all to enjoy. The installation helps commemorate Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra's music director, Jeffrey Kahane.
It's an amazing feeling for me. I grew up in this city. I grew up as a kid listening to the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra. Never, ever, as a child, did I dream that I would one day be the music director of the orchestra. So it's a great moment for me.
And those lucky enough to be at the California Plaza downtown on launch day were regaled with Kahane's rendition of Bach's famous work.
I wish there were more of these more often in more places in town.
And if they were inspired to do a little playing of their own, the best part is the public is welcome to play any of the pianos on display 24/7.
We want people not just to be listeners to music, but actually to get involved in the act of playing, because that's one of the greatest things a human being can do.
This piano installed at the California Plaza was painted by individuals from the Braille Institute, an especially poignant fact since Bach himself went blind in his old age.
For someone who's blind, music is one of the great, great gifts, because it's something that we experience through our ears. We don't need our eyes, and it's just tremendously moving to me. And the fact that they decorated this piano and it's so beautiful is just very powerful.
This is just fabulous. I'd heard about Play Me, I'm Yours, and I was just waiting for you guys to come to Los Angeles.
Other pianos, also painted by community organizations and artists, are installed in locations in LA, including Union Station, Chinatown, and LA City Hall, as well as in other cities like Torrance, Pasadena, and Glendale. The brainchild of a British artist, similar installations have been touring internationally since 2008, but it's the first time that it's come to the Southland. And now that it's here, go ahead, play me, I'm yours. The installation ends May 3rd. You can even go to streetpianosla.com to upload videos and photos of yourself interacting with the pianos. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook to see some of our most requested stories. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Need a recycling center? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall. Illegally parked cars? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
When I first came to the U.S.,
I brought my hopes and dreams for a better life.
Since becoming a U.S. citizen,
I'm running for public office.
I've traveled with the freedom and security of a U.S. passport.
And I voted for President of the United States.
U.S. citizenship means a better life.
I chose opportunity.
I chose freedom.
I chose responsibility.
I chose to become
a U.S. citizen.
I'm a proud American.
Hi, I'm Nina. This is my daughter Miranda, and we live in Silver Lake. We love the cultural diversity of Los Angeles. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Los Angeles City Council, or I should say your Los Angeles City Council. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. All of our meetings are open to the public, even our committee meetings. So we want to welcome you. If you have something to say, please fill out a public comment card. Mr. Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we do.
Would you read the roll?
Absolutely. Alarcon, Buscaino, Cardenas, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Carras, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zion, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Zion moves, Labange second. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Cardenas moves and Mr. Buscaino seconds.
Mr. President, there is a request from member to continue item 4 to May 15. Item 4 to May 15.
Okay, without objection. So let's go through the rest of the agenda, and then we have a presentation by Mr. Cardenas. The first section, please.
Very good, Mr. President. Items 1 through 3 are items noticed for public hearing. We do not have any cards for items 1 through 3, sir.
Members, specials. Okay, on those items, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Mr. President, items 5 through 12 are items for which public hearings have been held. A Housing, Community, and Development Committee report is expected for item 9.
Specials, members?
Item 9 to May 9th.
Mr. Cardenas wants to continue item 9 till May 9th. Any other specials, Mr. Garcetti? Mr. Garcetti calls item 12 special. No more. Mr. Parks? Mr. Parks calls number 6 special. No more specials?
Mr. President, pardon me, before voting on the matter, would you like to continue item 9 without objection to 1 week to May 9th?
Oh, yes, without objection. We'll continue that.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Parks.
Yeah, can I have 10 also so we talk to the staff?
Case on Mr. Parks is calling 6 and 10 special. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll.
On what item? All of the rest?
Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next.
Mr. President, that brings us to items 13 through 23. There are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Members, any specials on these items? Mr. Buscaino, number 19. Members, other specials. Cards?
Yes, sir. We have cards on items 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Excuse me, and 23.
Okay, so on the remaining items, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next.
Mr. President, item 24 is an item scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold it on the desk?
Yes, at this point, we'll hold it.
Very good. On the continuation agenda, item 25 is an item for which a public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Do we have any cards?
Yes, sir, we do have a card on 25.
Mr. Zine wants to call it special as well. That brings us where?
Mr. President, that takes council back to items called special, general public comment on council's agenda, or presentations.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cardenas for a presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and members. We have such a wonderful, beautiful, large city, and there are gems everywhere. And today, we're going to honor the Woodley Park Archers. And I have with me Wayne Shafran and also Don Tukey. And the Woodley Park Archery Range is located in my district. over in the Sepulveda Basin, over by the 101-405 junction in the Van Nuys area. The Woodley Park Archers Range was built in anticipation of the 1984 Olympics as one of the 3 practice facilities for Olympians to utilize. Today, in conjunction with the Woodley Park Archers and Easton Foundations and other community volunteers, the range remains open 7 days a week from sunrise to sunset. The archery accommodates all forms of archery, including compound, Olympic-style, recurve, and traditional-style archery. The range is able to provide free archery instructions to anyone who is willing to learn. That's thanks to the gracious time and contributions of volunteers from the Woodley Park's archers such as Jim McIntosh and Don Tukey are with me today, who have volunteered a countless number of hours on Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings to teach children and adults the sport of archery. I recently had an opportunity to enjoy the facilities. I took my family on my birthday, and we had a great time. The only bad part was my wife actually shot a lot better than I, so I haven't heard the end of that. And once again, it's through the commitment of volunteers and people in the community like the 2 gentlemen who are with me that keep this alive. And I would recommend that every Angelino take an opportunity to visit the archery, take some instructions, and it's very, very enjoyable. Believe it or not, archery, in my opinion, isn't something that some people might think, well, it's violent, you're shooting things. No, you're not actually shooting anything. You're actually relaxing, you're learning how to use your breathing better, you're learning how to listen to instruction, and when you listen to instruction, you actually will hit the mark. I was very surprised that as one of these gentlemen was standing next to me, and he actually said a little higher, a little lower, pull back a little bit further, I actually hit the bullseye. So I kind of wonder if it was them who made it happen or I made it happen. But I give you that example because in that moment we were having a great, great time. And I think that any time the city of Los Angeles can provide free services or a free activity to Angelinos, I think that's something that does, in fact, demonstrate the responsibility of our city, but at the same time the responsibility of the volunteers who provide that free service. So with that, I'd like to give the 2 gentlemen an opportunity to say a few words. I'd like to go first. Okay.
Honorable Council members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I want to express my sincere gratitude to Councilman Cardenas and to the City of Los Angeles for this wonderful recognition of the Woodley Park Archers. It's an honor to be part of an organization with a long history of service to our community. Through the continuing support of the Easton Foundations, for well over 15 years, a wonderful staff of coaches and instructors that are all volunteers, such as our present club head coach, Mr. Tucci, and our head instructor, Jim McIntosh. They've dedicated their Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings week after week to providing free archery instruction to hundreds of Angelinos each month in our archery instruction program. So we're very appreciative of this acknowledgement. We'll proudly display this honor in our presentation case at the archery range. Thank you very much on behalf of the coaches and members of the Woodley Park Archers.
I would just like to say thank you to the City of Los Angeles for recognizing the value of having an archery range, to allow people to come out and enjoy the outdoors in a very, very nice area. Thank you again, and thank you to Easton Corporation for supporting us. Their support has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you very much to our volunteers. Thank you, Mr. President. We have some certs. I'd like to give this certificate to these gentlemen, and so they can give it to the Easton Foundations. Okay. And Don. We'll do this here.
Okay, this one's mine.
That one has your name on it. That one's the foundation. And in addition to that, To the organization, the Woodley Park Archers, once again, they're providing free and valuable instruction and service to the community of Los Angeles. And once again, I strongly recommend that Angelinos come and visit and take the free lessons and learn how to have a really, really good time at one of our facilities. And once again, this facility was built for Olympians. So it really is a fine, fine facility. How far can they shoot?
Up to 90 meters.
Up to 90 meters is one of the range. People like me could probably never even attempt that. But just to show that it's for people who take it very, very seriously and people who want to go out there and just have a good time. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank the organization for all the wonderful work you've been doing.
Thank you for your time.
Woodley Park Archers, congratulations.
Thank you.
Go in the back and take some pictures.
Mr. Englander, if you could please come up here, sit next to your president for a minute.
Go to our left, all the way to go, please.
He's in the woodshed. No, he's not. Okay, I want to call... let me just check with the clerk. It would now be appropriate to move into public comment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to call Mr. Arnold Sachs, Bruce Boyer, and John Walsh. Please come forward for general public comment.
This is his documents.
Sergeants, if you could please assist Mr. Sachs.
Sir, that's for Tony's, that's his crap he left up here. The speech. Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. I'm so sorry that I missed some of the budget discussions. This is the story from the 21st. New budget eliminates 669 positions. And in this story, it mentions that 159 secretaries and typists will be losing their jobs. In addition, 72 city employees and other departments will be losing their jobs. The remaining positions to be eliminated are currently vacant, but funded. So you have 231 positions being eliminated or laid off out of 669, which leaves you approximately 440 vacated positions that are funded. So last year there was a budget crisis, and those 440 positions that were vacated but funded remained. And the year prior to that, there was a terrible budget crisis, and those 440 positions that were vacated but funded remained. And then the year before, those positions that were vacated were funded but still remained. But what's important in this story, it highlights that the city has laid off 400 people the last time they had budget cut. So they laid off 400 people, but they kept 440 positions vacated but budgeted. And what did those 400 layoffs cost? $30 million, because that's what the pay raise got that was kicked in due to layoffs. So what kind of leadership is the city council showing when they continue to keep vacated, budgeted positions and lay people off?
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Bruce Boyer, followed by John Walsh. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm Bruce Boyer from Reseda, and I'm here today for the Sons of Liberty of Los Angeles. On May 12th, you plan to perpetrate another fraudulent gun buyback on the citizens, knowing that a murderer can use this event to dispose of a murder weapon, as any gun turned in cannot be used as evidence. You know full well that most of the guns turned in are water pistols and doorstops. There's no gangsters giving up their guns. Only people in such dire financial straits that they'll wait in line for hours to exchange an old gun for a gift card. Well, now you tell the citizens that we're safer if we're defenseless, yet at least 4 of you carry a gun for your own safety. Today in Los Angeles, 25 women are going to go before a judge and they're going to be granted a restraining order as they're clearly in danger. Well, now, if you cared about their safety, you would take these old guns and you would give them to these women who are in danger. Instead, you tell them the police will protect them. The same police who have 1,000 women who carry guns. Your respect for women. Well, now, the Sons of Liberty will be out again on May 12th, and we're going to expose your fraud, and you're going to disregard, again, the safety of women. Now, we fully expect that you will once again use every means at your disposal to keep us out, silence us, violate our free speech, violate our freedoms of assembly. But we're going to do this, and we're going to expose you. So you are hereby on notice. You will respect our rights of freedom of speech and assembly. We will attend this event. We will participate in the event. This notice has been given to your city clerk. For either you will do this and you will confirm this in writing by 5 p.m. or we will see you in federal court.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. John Walsh?
Bang.
Good morning.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. We did something unusual. We put up a post last night, it's brand new, about what happened at Occupy May Day. I'm telling you, you know what? You rule by the consent of the governed. And yesterday, the governed didn't consent. Not one of you showed up. And what happened? We took over the streets nonviolently and peacefully, and we sent a message. Remember what happened yesterday. It was a dress rehearsal by Antonio Villaraigosa for the police oppression that will happen at Occupy Charlotte. Occupy Charlotte will be the mother of all Occupy movements. And it's not about not supporting Obama. It's about Obama coming to his senses. And we will see what happens. This and the LA Times, read the letter, the email I sent to Eddie Hartenstein. It's on our website, HollywoodHighlands.org. There were 60 cars, 60 police cars double parked in front of the LA Times as they spent more money, the LAPD, on LA Times. How much did it cost? We live in a city where when you went down into the subway yesterday, you found sheriffs in full riot gear. Because remember who the enemy is. The enemy is not the Afghans. Your enemy is not the Iraqis. Your enemy is the people. The cost of Occupy May Day was incredible, and you won't tell us exactly what it is. HollywoodHighlands.org right now. Find out what's happening. Who is the most powerful man in the city of Los Angeles? Not Eli Broad, not you, not the mayor. And read our blog. The most powerful man is someone most of you have never heard of. Mr. Nelson Rising, a mega blogger for Obama.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Now I'd like to call on Matt Dowd, followed by Armanik Noorajanian, and I think Daniel Garcia. Yes, Mr. Dowd.
Yes, thank you. Gee, Herb Weston, the 5th month in the chair, and you still have to ask the city clerk if you go to public comment. You know, why don't you just go there now? It's about time to just take a hold of it and do it. So the 5th month, okay, yesterday, I want to talk about that because I was down here getting the depositions up in the tower here. And here's what I'm going to say to Occupy. See, doing it once as a token gesture doesn't do anything. That was just a warm-up. That was just a dress rehearsal, whatever you want to call it. It's exactly what it was. You need to do it every couple of days. You need to do it on May the 5th. You need to do it like at least once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Because it worked. What you did yesterday worked. They shut down LA. You shut them down. So congratulations. You shut them down. And here's the problem, City Council. You were all cozy with Occupy too at the beginning, and it just makes me think of Zuma Dog when he sat here and he goes, "You always make it worse. You always make it worse. You always make it worse." And Occupy came in here and you made it worse. Like, oh yeah, we love Occupy, warm and fuzzy. And they wrecked the place outside, and look at it, you're still fixing it $2 million later. You know, so here's what they have to do. Maybe when the constituents see that the city's bankrupt, then they'll vote you all out. Because I seen the CAO here with all the numbers of the budget, Tom LaBonge. You didn't see that? 200 million? Who was saying structural deficit, structural deficit, structural deficit in 2009? And now they're out here, oh, gee, we got a structural deficit of $200 million every year, and the firemen are crying for resources, and you got all the performers at Venice Beach, $1,000 an hour the attorneys are charging the city for depositions and stuff just because you're vindictive and retaliatory.
Thank you. Thank you. Armanik Noorajanian, followed by Daniel Garcia.
Good morning, respectable City Council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. My name is Armanak Noorajanian. I'm a liberal Democrat and human rights advocate. I run for the seat of California State Assembly from the South Central Los Angeles, so-called 59th District. Actually, I'm more liberal than President Obama himself. And I ask all the black and Hispanic voters to give me their vote because I'm most progressive, most liberal candidate of all, and I actually promise to create more jobs and provide amnesty also for all applicants in state DMV, which will be able to obtain their driver's license without disclosing their immigration status. If you get me elected with June 5th to California State Assembly. I also promise to raise taxes 50% against wealthy individuals in California and gasoline selling corporations, all producer manufacturers, in order to create new jobs and replenish state coffers. Nowadays, California Governor Edmund Brown, decided to raise tax on 3% and raise maybe a quarter-cent sales tax, which is ludicrous and it doesn't reflect the realities of California politics and economic, and we need to raise taxes much more, about 50%, in order to provide more jobs for California. Actually, also I promise to provide 6 months free pregnancy leave for all California women, promise to raise speed limit 20 miles up on all California freeways and highways, and also I promise to introduce comprehensive ban against so-called medical marijuana dispensaries, as well as medical marijuana narco-mobsters, RIPO of California, RIPO of Angelinos, and I ask City Council members to cancel the so-called notorious...
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Garcia, Daniel, good to see you again.
Good morning, City Council, Mr. President. I'm here because I discovered that the city has invested in jobs for people with disabilities. I congratulate you for that, but that's not enough. If you compare the numbers that I have here, I will give you the information afterwards, Henry is here. But I want to give you this information because they, under the workforce development division, I got information about Jaime Pacheco Orozco, and she gave me information about the 2011 and 2012. 7 people with disabilities. You have increased in number of 10%. On 10% of these people have been served. This is great, but if you compare the numbers that the LA City as a whole is 9 million, it's 3 million people. 3 million people living in Los Angeles. Now, if you calculate how many times workers are in the program is 122 than 22 people working for you. That make 3% working for you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Thank you. Could sergeants, could you please get that from him? Thank you, sir. Okay, now we're going to call on Mr. Dollhouse Dude, and after that we'll go to the Valley for, I believe, it's Periel Stansfield. Mr. Dude.
My real name is Juan Alcalá. They call me the Dollhouse Dude on the internet. I am trying to I'm trying to provide an idea that would change us from a homeless making system to a system that provides housing for everyone on a permanent basis. There is a formula, and I keep trying to give you the formula, but I don't know if anybody's listening. Coretz, Wizard, Garcetti, Englander, Cardenas, Buscaino, Alarcón, City Attorney, City Clerk, Borin, Rosendahl, Reyes, Perry, Pars, Labonche, Krikorian. I want to be your friend, but I want you to tell me how can we accomplish what I am trying to do. And it isn't just me, it's all of us together. I am with Occupy LA simply because they are trying to tell you there are things that are very wrong, like throwing families out on the street, using the sheriff department to tell the little kid, you don't count, you little sucker, get out of here. Just because you don't have money to pay those filthy bankers. You know, let's create a system that will provide housing for everyone. I'm sure you signed up in political office to help people, not to hurt people, but you seem to have become public enemy number one. I don't understand why. Because you keep wasting the money on projects that are not getting us anywhere. Can you please tell me how to make a proposition with you that will carry weight and will take us into a new way of doing business? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dude. Now we can go to the Valley.
Hi.
Good morning.
My name is Periel Stanfield, and I am here speaking on behalf of myself and also other friends of mine in the animal rescue community whose schedules do not permit them to be here today. I am here to speak about an issue which we just found out about. This is that the LA Animal Services General Manager, Brenda Barnett, has acted to usurp the commission, the LA Animal Services Commission's power. She's made a unilateral move without really informing anybody else in the rescue community to remove the position of New Hope coordinator at all the LA animal shelters. This is an absolutely outrageous move. It's going to be devastating to the rescue community. We need our New Hope coordinators. I really was shocked by this. Now Brenda Barnett is backpedaling. Now she's called for a town hall meeting also on very short notice, and also a lot of people are not going to be able to get there. She is very out of touch with the daily realities of the animal shelter. She's trying to claim that the kennel supervisors are going to be able to take over the duties of the New Hope coordinators. That is going to be impossible. The result is going to be devastating for the animals and for the rescue community. This is a betrayal of the animals, of the city of LA, of the LA Animal Services Commission, and I really want you to look into this. This is it's not acceptable. And the public has a right to have a say in what happens with our animal shelters. New Hope coordinators are probably the most valuable program, and we need them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends today's general public comment. So, Mr. Clerk, that brings us to item 6. Mr. Parks, are you prepared to deal with item 6 now? Okay, so let's go to item 6.
Could we have the CAO come up, please? Good morning. Marita, could you just give us a breakdown on what the costing is as we go through the 3 fiscal years?
Certainly. Marita Aspen from the CAO's office. This ordinance is to provide salary increases to about the 20 classifications of DWP that are not represented. The cost and
Can I just stop you right there? Could you tell us when you say 20, what level are they that we can make a comparison? Management?
Yes, these are assistant general managers, the higher level that are non-represented.
Okay.
And like I said, there's about 20 classifications. There are currently about 16 incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
The price for this fiscal year is about $45,000. Was it 45 or 450? Yeah, $45,000. For fiscal year 12-13, it's about $100,000, and the annual ongoing is about $180,000.
And that starts 14-15?
Yes.
So there's no other cost that's added on after 15-16?
Correct.
Okay. And so, colleagues, the reason I bring this up, and it's not a lot of money and a lot of people, but it just happens to be the department that's going to be asking for significant rate increases at the same time that they're basically management employees are getting raises. And so I bring that up because I think that should be part of the consideration for voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. On item 6, I have cards from Mr. Sachs and Mr. Norajanian. If you could please come forward on item 6.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. He's absolutely right. Last week, 2 weeks ago, they came in. We need to get rate increases because we need to fix infrastructure. You know, it's almost like, can you hear the state colleges, the UC colleges, and the Cal State colleges? Our state is cutting our education budgets. We need more money so we can pay our regents higher, give them higher pay raises. Exactly the same. Where is the sanity, or better put, when is the insanity going to stop? 14 other council members sitting here. I'm sure that half a dozen of you got up to speak out about the rate increase. Who's speaking up about the salaries?
Mr. Norajanian.
Respectable City Council member, dear fellow Angelino, actually, I endorse with item 6, resolution 6, because it's actually involves kind of the matter of salaries of those non-represented employees of LA DWP. Well, actually, but actually, I would like to ask council members to amend with resolution item 6 with concrete proposals, to increase at least salaries of those at least to state those salaries of non-represented employees of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, because this item 6 doesn't have any kind of information about the salaries, proposed salaries of those non-represented employees of the Department of Water and Power, and should be included into this particular resolution. But actually, it's strange for me to hear that that City of Los Angeles will care to amend salaries of those non-represented employees, because actually Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa has recently declared that he was going to cut labor costs and healthcare costs of Los Angeles workers, to cut, to do budget cuts, It all happens because that kind of budget cuts happen only because City of Los Angeles government refuses to raise taxes against wealthy homeowners and oil producing manufacturers. Well, 49% of Angelinos want to raise taxes against oil producing manufacturers.
Thank you. Thank you. No speakers in the queue. On this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 3 noes.
Next item. Mr. Parks, I think next item is...
Pardon me, sir, before moving on. Item number 6 was an ordinance, so that will go over for a second read.
I got it. Okay, so let's... but we're now on 10, right?
That is correct, sir.
Mr. Parks, are you ready on 10?
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I just had a couple of questions. We dealt with this in Jobs Committee, but I know that these businesses or vendors are basically handling citywide work, but one of the concerns I have is that in looking at them, it looks like there's only one that was selected that is south of the Santa Monica Freeway, where we're in the highest unemployment rate. And although they're dealing with specific categories and they are citywide interests, I have found that they generally do best where they're located as opposed to the outreach. I just want to find out what was the selection criteria and how did we basically avoid some of what we thought were some outstanding workforce centers south of the Santa Monica Freeway.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm Greg Irish from the Workforce Investment Board. I'm joined by Julie O'Leary from the Community Development Department. We actually conducted a competitive procurement to select these providers. The WIB has had a focus on industry sectors. We're focusing on industries that have the greatest potential to come out of this recession, of course, create living wage jobs, or have jobs that will lead maybe have entry-level wages but lead to progressive wage gains. We had a competitive procurement. We procured actually 9 contractors for 10 programs. We're focusing on 8 sectors. And actually their catchment areas in terms of their recruitment will take place citywide. So I understand your concern. You want to make sure that folks from South LA are actually recruited for these programs. There are a number of programs, though, out of the 9 contractors that actually deliver their training services within South LA. UAW, which is actually taking the lead on construction, will recruit citywide, but they actually provide their training in South LA. Jewish Vocational Services is actually training in the financial sector, but their training takes place at the Expo Center in South LA. You also have the Community Career Development, which is on Wilshire Boulevard in the great 10th District, will provide training in healthcare. And you've got El Proyecto del Barrio, which is provides training both in the Valley in logistics as well as in Watts. And finally, the Community Career Development provides logistics training from Wilshire Boulevard as well. So again, all of these contractors, their catchment area will be citywide. It will not be confined to where they're located. And what we need to do is give you the assurances that we will recruit citywide and make sure that the areas of the highest unemployment, that significant numbers of those folks who need to be served by these programs.
The other thing I was wondering, when you pick these categories that you believe are on the uptick, how do they match the areas with the highest unemployment? Are there resources in those areas that can fill health care, transportation, financial, security, entertainment? Are those the areas that can produce that source of employee?
We're not necessarily focusing on where the jobs will be. The jobs will be throughout the city. But these are actually we used a number of studies to determine that these industries are likely to hire.
Well, yeah, but my concern is, I agree with you, they're most likely to hire, but are the areas with the highest unemployment the likely source for candidates to be hired?
Yes, and that's our commitment to you, Council Member. What we need to do is make sure that we can report back to you on what's happening in terms of making sure that folks in the 8th, 9th, and 10th District, which has the highest unemployment, that they're adequately served out of the 770 people that will be trained through these programs.
Now, is this a one-year
one-year deal. We anticipate the successful ones will continue. And again, there'll be some more announcements that we'll be coming to you with in the future in terms of how we're going to address the areas that have the highest unemployment. We have an innovation fund of $1.5 million that we're proposing in this year's budget. We intend to concentrate that additional money on some of the areas with the highest unemployment. And as you know, South LA is experiencing some phenomenal unemployment rates right now.
My last question, is there a way that you can report back to us on a quarterly basis or something so that we just don't wait until the end of the time period and find out we weren't successful? Can we start getting some quarterly reports or whatever the normal reporting is?
Yeah, we would have the capacity to report by zip code on a quarterly basis.
Speaking of that, Mike, I can't hear you.
We would have the capacity to report by zip code on a quarterly basis, so the number of folks in training and then as people get placed into jobs.
So training and in placement.
Yes, we have goals for both of those.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. Irish. This is very important. You have it's Los Angeles City College, a workforce.
Yes, and actually you're covered. Managed Career Solutions is one of our biggest providers, is located on the campus of LACC.
Right. I would just like to ask a friendly amendment as we go forward that we partner as much as we can with the community college district. I would like to see a strong relationship with the Seahawks of Harvard College and the Port of Los Angeles. I would like to see a strong relationship with the Cougars of Southwest LA and the Los Angeles Airport, and on and on and on to identify industry. Bob Arias is a port commissioner, and he talks about he graduated from San Pedro High. They'd go up on the hill and they'd look out across the South Bay and they'd see jobs, 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 whether it's auto manufacturing, aircraft manufacturing, tires, etc., all the way down. Many of those have been displaced due to the changing world that we live in. Relationships to our community college have to be strengthened for the opportunity of persons of all ages. So I'm glad you're at Los Angeles City College. I know Mr. Garcetti was a champion in that particular location. It's right off the subway line, which many people could reach. But look throughout the region. And are we responsible just for the city of Los Angeles, or do we merge in other areas?
Responsible just for the city, but 95% of all our training, what we're showing you here are the prime contractors, but most of this training takes place through community colleges. 95%, and Mr. Garcetti has led this charge, of the $50 million we get in federal funds, most of the training, 95% of it is done through the community college system. We support the public system rather than private proprietary schools.
I got that, and that's so real important because the public system. Thank you, and I know Mr. West has been a champion of community colleges. Thank you, Greg Irish.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Garcetti.
Yes, just to wrap up, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for the questions. Thank you for the good work on this. We had this in committee, and for those who might be watching at home, we get a lot of workforce training dollars from the federal government in past years. Now this is way past, but it's always good to tell the history. We mostly use that money in kind of a birdseed fashion. We helped people with their resumes, look through want ads. It was a very unorganized and undirected way. We've increasingly moved towards training. We've increasingly looked at sectors. When I chaired HCD committee a while back with a few of you here, we started looking at strategic sectors that we thought were going to be the growth sectors of tomorrow. And these are reflected now, and I have to commend the mayor and the WIB for their work in continuing forward in the construction trades where African Americans no longer were doing much work, the training and the partnership there. In the entertainment industry where diversity has lacked for a long time and where we hire people from around the country and around the world, but we don't necessarily grow both below the line and above the line, our own stars here. Looking at the financial sector and increasing jobs that people can have getting into banks and managing the work there. Our green and solar work, where we know that installing solar panels, the clean technology of the future is going to be something very important here, especially as this council moved forward on a feed-in tariff recently. Our healthcare sector, where this was all born. Hospitality, at one of our three key sectors in our economy of trade, tourism, and technology. Our security, which is an increasingly higher paying and higher skilled sector. We have a lot of veterans who are going into this, actually coming home from war and going into the security sector. And then transportation. These are the sectors where we know they will have jobs. The jobs gap is bad enough, but the skills gap is even worse. And we are closing the skills gap with these, putting this out in RFP. I want to congratulate the WIB on their good work with this and look forward to increasing our partnerships with some of our private sector employers who can save money when they work with us, who can get great skilled people who live right here in our neighborhoods, and who can ensure that Los Angeles is poised for the prosperity of tomorrow. So thank you very much. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. With that,
Mr. President, pardon me, prior to taking a vote, if we could ask the chair of the committee if he would accept Mr. Labange's amendment as friendly.
I do accept it as a quite friendly amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Quite friendly? Okay.
Amicable.
So, on this item, let's wait a minute, Mr. Labange.
For Pierce, Mission, and Valley College, and East LA, and all the community, West LA, I just want to get them all in there. All 9.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That brings us to item 12. Mr. Clerk?
That is correct, sir. And might I advise you that motion 12A has been distributed and is now before you for consideration.
Okay, now it's my understanding that public comment was already satisfied on this item.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So this was called again special by Mr. Garcetti. The floor is yours.
Thank you. We have a substitute motion, colleagues, 12A on this, on the funding. The old song, Missing Person song, says nobody walks in L.A., and yet increasingly we know that people are walking in L.A. There's a change in how we're approaching transportation. It started, I think, first with the bicyclists in the city, and so many of us around this horseshoe have seen that change in the way that we navigate Los Angeles. We've seen 150,000 people coming out to Ciclavia when we open up the streets to bicycles and not cars. But increasingly, we see one of the other times you can sometimes take your life into your own hands in Los Angeles is when you walk our streets. There's hardly a month that goes by without a tragedy in one of our districts of a pedestrian who has been hit by a car, sometimes losing their lives. We've seen that people, though, increasingly want to be able to walk in their neighborhoods. They want wider sidewalks. They want better planning that isn't just a parking lot on the street. We've seen areas like Atwater Village in my own district take on pedestrian overlay districts to encourage good development that actually encourages people to walk and not to drive everywhere. And every time we do that, we reduce traffic, we reduce pollution for everybody. So a year ago, I worked with the Department of Transportation to come together and to see, just as we have a bicycle coordinator in the city of Los Angeles, if we couldn't create a pedestrian coordinator position in the city of Los Angeles, to look at how we're looking at transportation policy and start thinking about it from the pedestrian up. It was the pobladores who first founded the city walking here from the Mission of San Gabriel. And since then, we have had folks that have looked to walk the streets, to enjoy the beautiful weather, but that increasingly want to make sure that when we have things like Measure R, which is focused on cars and trains, when we look at the connectors, it is those of us who want to walk to transit, who want to walk once they get out of the car, who need to make sure that we have somebody who is advocating for us. Originally, it was going to be one position, working with DO2. It looks like we will have 2 positions, and I urge your support here today. Just as we looked back on the creation of a bicycle coordinator many years ago, starting that revolution in how we look at getting around the city, we now are going to be doing the same thing for our pedestrians to encourage people to finally, in the capital of cars, to walk in LA. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
Thank you. Colleagues, I voted against this in the committee because of 3 things. One, although I think it's a great idea to have a head coordinator, number one, I think the Measure R is the wrong source of funds for it. Number 2, we have a budget process going on, and this is somewhat premature, proving positions outside of the budget process. And 3, the issue of 2 positions versus 1. The CAO recommended 1 to allow this to get off the ground and move forward. The committee moved it to 2. I just think that with the dire times of the budget, also, we don't want ever Measure R money to get where we were with some of our propositions that deal with overspending. And so, again, I think it's a good idea. It's just, in my judgment, the wrong source of funding, and we should not be going premature of the budget and selecting 2 positions when the CAO is recommending 1.
Mr. Labange.
I recruit the fine gentleman to my left of me, Mr. Parks, on that. The time is now. The small investment of $40,000 does help those who are responsible to try to create this energy that is going on. At the same time, Mr. De La Vega, and I know you're here, we do want to remember there's streets that do have to carry traffic. And traffic safety is so important, to look both ways and make sure the car stops before you cross the street, no matter if it's an intersection or not. It's sometimes very unsafe, but we need to hide that awareness. This small investment will make those people who walk on Hillhurst, or those people who walk on Central Avenue, or those people who walk on Beverly Boulevard or Ventura Boulevard, have someone looking out for them. So I think it's a small investment for a good charge, so I support Mr. Garcetti with all the respect Mr. Parks is due. I think it's time, it's small amount of money to cap it. This is a position that is enhanced. The person's already there. It's not like we're bringing someone in and having to pay the whole cost. We're enhancing the position. Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
When would this position take effect? We have the general manager from DOT come forward, please. Because maybe there's a solution to the issue with the funding.
Good morning. Jaime De La Vega, DOT. If the council did approve these positions, we'd be advertising to hire them as soon as possible.
So when do you think it would take effect? The process to go through personnel, et cetera, background, a month, 2 months, 30 days?
I'm hoping that we can get it done in about 2 months.
2 months. And this is May. And in 2 months is July. So what if we were to approve this with the understanding that it would take effect after July 1st, and that way it could be included in the budget, and there wouldn't be an issue regarding the finance? Mr. Garcetti, is that agreeable to you? It's going to take 2 months to go through the process?
To answer that for Mr. Zion, for Mr. Parks, there's $1.75 million set aside in Measure R for pedestrian work, just like there's 1.75 for bicycles. So this isn't something that wasn't written into Measure R. It is in there. We've, for instance, spent out that 1.75 million for bicycles already. We haven't spent $1 on the pedestrian. So it is there. It is ready to go now. Actually, the person isn't there yet, so we would be hiring. And I say we had that accident out in the West Valley, 2 girls who were hit.
No, I support the
position. No, I know. I'm not convincing on that. But the Safe Routes to Schools, there's a Safe Routes to School program that, in 2008 that was set up for exactly that area, and we haven't funded it. Let's get this funding going now before somebody else is hit.
Well, I'm saying if there's an issue with funding, but apparently what you're saying, there is no issue with funding.
Got it.
Mr. De La Vega, the money is there for Measure R?
Yes.
To make this happen now, but it's still going to take 2 months to get it in place.
Yeah, there is no funding issue. We do have the money in hand already approved by council. The department's preference would be to get the approval today, if that's the council's pleasure. This request has been in the pipeline and actually predates the budget process. So,
so this would not affect the budget discussions, your department, and the deficit that we're facing.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, that clarification helps that people that are skeptical about where's the funding going to come from, it's already part of Measure R, it's already there. So whether it takes 1 month or 2 months to get the person in place, it's not going to affect the current budget discussions that are currently underway.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, for helping save lives.
Ms. Perry.
What happens down the road, the person is hired and then they, even though it's coming through Measure R, but what happens down the road in terms of, you know, health care costs and pension obligations and that sort of thing? Where does that come from to sustain that employee?
Right. You know, as currently proposed, that would also come from Measure R. Our original proposal was to hire outside consultants to assist us on a full-time basis, and a determination was made by the personnel department that these positions should be in-house, and that was the recommendation to the committee, and we're comfortable with that.
So on a permanent basis, all the stream of sustaining the cost of this employee will come from Measure R, correct?
Yeah, that's my assumption, although ultimately it is a decision for the council and mayor on an annual basis how to fund the positions. That
So
could be
just so I'm clear, so that none of the funding for, you know, health care, retirement, any of that will ever come from the general fund or will never impact the general fund. Is that correct?
Yes, assuming the council mayor continue to fund these positions on an annual basis from Measure R, there will be no general fund impact.
So if later the council decides not to fund these not to fund these positions through Measure R, then that can all change?
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Garcetti, I have Mr. Parks on the queue again. Maybe I should call on him and then you close. Mr. Parks.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, there's no dispute that the money's in Measure R. I think when we set up criteria for Measure R, we tried to say that we never get to where what Prop M and others are, where it overloaded with personnel, and that we should use it for year-to-year activities that are single use. And yes, there's 10% of the money set aside for pads and bicycles, but again, we were trying not to put personnel as an ongoing cost, because we saw what happened 2 years ago when we continually overloaded Prop M and other propositions, that we had to back off on all of the service for buses because personnel just keeps growing in that amount. So it's not a matter of Measure R is not there, it's the use of Measure R and the original concept of trying to keep it within year-to-year single-use projects as opposed to personnel costs.
Mr. Garcetti to close.
Thank you, colleagues. So just a reminder, this is a resolution authority. This is not a regular authority, so that will be embedded in that to answer Ms. Perry and Mr. Parks' questions. It's a resolution authority. We have actually, I think, of the 1.75, already 2 years of Measure R. It's at actually $3.5 million. When you look at the $135,000 in cost for both of these, I mean, you could almost fund 20 years of it just with the amount that's in there today. I think all of our road work, all of our rail work, and all of our transit work in Measure R will always have some folks who hopefully are going to be working on these things for the next 20 to 30 years so that we can see them embedded. But as a Reso authority, when that no longer is needed, when we have a city that's truly safe for our pedestrians, when we've built out the infrastructure to allow that to happen, we will always have that option then to make sure that that isn't an ongoing cost for the city. So I urge your support for this today. I think this will be a brave, I guess it's pun intended, a brave step forward for Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Okay, let's open the roll on this item.
Mr. President, for clarification, that is the Transportation Committee report as amended by Motion 12A.
Okay, let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay. Mr. Buscaino, would you want to deal with your item at this time? So we'll now move to item 19.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, item 19 is a important issue that is facing my community in San Pedro and in fact other parts of the city as well. Bombing, skateboarding, reckless skateboarding across the city. Unfortunately, recently 2 teenagers suffered fatal injuries as a result of bombing in San Pedro. One occurred in November, most recently in January. And oftentimes, we've heard from neighborhood council members, business owners, residents, of the frustrations of dealing and avoiding skateboarders that are weaving in and out of traffic and completely have a disregard of rules of the road. Working with the Los Angeles Police Department and the neighborhood council members, this motion will prohibit reckless skateboarding, or otherwise known as bombing, in the city of Los Angeles, where it will allow skateboarders to follow the same rules of the road as we do with bicyclists across the city. Anyone here from the city attorney's office? We heard from them in public safety. You know, my first day at city council, we heard from Rob Dyrdek, world famous skateboarder, and thanks to Mr. Wesson who brought him in. It was a Rob Dyrdek Day, and it was a message that he clearly put out to teenagers across the city is to, if you're going to skateboard, do it in a safe manner, and most importantly, use our existing skate parks that we have across the city. So I respectfully ask for an aye vote to move forward on this, and also we're looking at asking the city attorney to have the officers impound the skateboards after the citation's given, so the parents can go to the police station and recover the skateboard, because oftentimes as a police officer I know a lot of these kids don't tell mom or dad that they got cited from the police department. So with that, colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote to move forward on this item. Thank you.
Mr. Buscaino, I happened to watch a little program about that last week, and I just have to say, I didn't know one could travel that fast on a skateboard. It looks dangerous. And then to hear the stories of the one guy who lost his best friend. So anyway, we have public comment cards on this item. So, in fact, we have two members got on this item, Mr. Englander, followed by Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank Councilmember Buscaino for bringing this forward as well. This is an issue that we've got to deal with in my district as well, because we've got a lot of hills in Porter Ranch and Granada Hills, and so we've got a lot of people doing this as well. And the fact is, kids are dying. And when I heard that story on television last week, and that boy was talking about his best friend, and the fact that they were just stupid that day. They weren't wearing any protection and any helmets. There's no brakes on these. They lose control and they die, or worse, end up as vegetables, brain dead, and with all kinds of problems, and what that does to a family. So I applaud you for bringing this forward. It's long overdue, and now we need an educational component. It's one thing to cite these kids, but we need to let people know what's going to happen if they continue to do this. So thank you. You've got my support.
That's a good idea, Mr. Englander. Mr. Alarcon.
I know my wife and I, too, were shocked when we saw that story on the news, and want to commend Mr. Buscaino for bringing this matter to our attention. I do want to add a friendly amendment to ask the either Department of Transportation or Department of Public Works to report back on what we can do structurally to reduce the potential for these kinds of things, to encourage the incentives that allow kids to identify certain streets. Is there anything we can do to reduce the potential that they'll want to use particular streets in that way? Not that we want to put speed humps on hills, but and encourage them to go flying off. But I think the law is one thing. They're already violating laws, and anything we can do to tighten them up is good. But I think there may be some technical things we can do structurally to the street that might help. So I would like to offer a friendly amendment that we ask Department of Public Works and Department of Transportation to report to the Public Safety Committee. Is the City Attorney reporting back?
Yes.
Reporting back with the City Attorney on structural changes that might be recommended in the future.
All right. With that said, if I could get Arno Sachs and John Walsh, and then we'll go to the Valley.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. Mentioned something about bicyclists, so how about requiring helmets for skateboarders? And if you want to put some teeth into this, how about making it a hefty fine? If you're going to impound the skateboard, make it a hefty fine. If you're looking to save lives, nothing saves lives than having to pay a big fine. And finally, signposting. Are you going to put up signs regarding this? And I have a real concern. Report back to the Public Safety Committee with an analysis of laws enacted by other municipalities to prohibit safe skateboarding. Why wasn't that done first? Why didn't you check with other municipalities first so you get an idea about how broadly or how narrow you want to make the scope of this law? That's ridiculous.
Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands. I don't know why it's only a minute. This is the second time I'm up. HollywoodHighlands.org. New post up since last night. You know, my skateboard is so old. It is so old it has a Howdy Doody decal on it. Okay, and I bought a new one, but it has learner wheels on it. I would like to thank Mr. Buscaino for, and I would like to introduce Mr. Buscaino. It's got 4 syllables, right? And because he is now an official candidate for mayor of the city of Los Angeles. This is obviously. Now, I would suggest instead of waiting 4 years that you run now, because as it stands now, you have a much better chance than Zev Yaroslavsky. There are 60% who don't know a damn about who they're going to vote for. Thank you. HollywoodHighlands.org. Go there now. Visit.
Okay, let's go to the Valley. Officer Ashcraft, followed by... Oh, it's in San Pedro. Are they both in San Pedro?
Yes.
Yeah, there he is. Officer.
Hello. Thank you for letting me talk. I'm here to talk about the skateboarding issue, obviously that Councilman Joe Buscaino had talked about. And basically what we want to do is have them be held to the same rules of the roads as bicyclists. You know, we're not saying that all skateboarders are bad. That's not what we're saying. The majority of skateboarders in and around San Pedro are law-abiding. They follow the rules of the road, even though they don't have to. They don't go in and out of intersections. But we're getting a large portion of them now blowing through stop signs, drafting behind vehicles, cutting in and weaving in and out of traffic, in and out of the lanes. And this has become a public safety issue for pedestrians, for people in cars, and for the skateboarders themselves. And like had been mentioned before, with the unfortunate deaths of those two children. And basically, what we want to do is, I've talked to numerous kids in and around the area about skateboarding, and San Pedro's always been a popular area to skateboard. But now it's becoming more of a popular throughout the country, and having other people from other countries come and skateboard in and around the area. And so what we want them to do is just follow the same rules of the road bicyclists do. We want them to use the skate parks. We have one in Wilmington. We're building one at Peck Park right now in San Pedro. And we want, the Los Angeles Police Department wants the kids to use the parks. We like the fact that they're skateboarding. We just want them to follow the same rules of the road as everybody else, and that way they can protect themselves, protect the motorists, and protect the pedestrians walking in and around. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Diana?
Good morning. My name is Diana Nave, and I'm the president of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. And I want to thank our councilman for introducing this motion. Our council hasn't taken an official position on this, but this is a concern that we have raised and are really quite happy to see a response to the concerns, because we've been long concerned about the safety of the skateboarders in our community, and I think you've already heard a lot of the reasons why. We get more email on this than just about any other issue other than Ponte Vista and cell towers. People being concerned and citing specific situations that have occurred where people have been, as I said, weaving in and out of traffic, or they have come in and out of nowhere, because they're moving so rapidly, come into an intersection and almost caused accidents. So we are concerned. We do support our skateboard community. We have worked to get the skate park at Peck Park to provide additional alternatives for off-road, but we're also concerned about looking at how to make the roadways more safe for the skateboarders. And I appreciated Councilmember Alicon's amendment, and would suggest that you look at how can we actually improve the use, because this has become a major form of transportation for the young people in our community. And finally, as you move forward with it, I'd like to suggest that you involve some of the skateboard community themselves in talking about how to proceed, because they may have some insights and some suggestions for you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
I have one question on this particular matter. Have we considered having a vehicle code section and petitioning Sacramento to include it in the California Vehicle Code, to have a restriction? There's this local ordinance, which means it'll still be able in other jurisdictions. Have we considered? If we haven't, we might want to consider legislation to Sacramento to have a vehicle code. Mr. Alarcon will take care of that when he... No, I think we should do that, because it's a serious matter. You've got a lot of hills in that area. We have those in parts of the city, and if these people don't understand, the youth don't understand the consequences, and I know it's very serious. So in addition to an ordinance which has some impact, the vehicle code section would have greater impact throughout the state, so we should look at the expanding this to author. Mr. Dion, what do you think about that? Mr. City Attorney?
It's a good plan.
So why don't we pursue that? We have a legislative liaison in Sacramento. See if we get a vehicle code section on it. Okay.
Mr. Labange.
Go question. Can you ride a skateboard off a sidewalk into a street? No violation? What is the technical rules? Because just as tragic as the situation in San Pedro with the Hills, what they call bombing, many skateboarders leave the sidewalk and go into the street. And could you give it on the microphone?
I would say that would be considered reckless skateboarding. Anytime that you're going to go into the traffic without, again, not following the rules of the road, or as a pedestrian as well. Yeah, I would say that the skateboard or pedestrian, we ask pedestrians not to jump out in traffic, so we'll be asking the same for skateboarders.
And we'll look at that issue there.
Yes.
Because I know safety is more important, but it is, as your constituent from San Pedro said, I've seen many people use skateboarding now as a means of transportation as well, as not just for recreation. And I bet they couldn't, maybe Richard, did you used to pound skates onto a board to make a skateboard? And amazing how they are now, the crafts that they are. Joe, thank you for your leadership in San Pedro and throughout the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Koretz.
Yeah, we have a tiny bit of a problem with this in my district. In some ways, it's a good thing. On Fairfax Avenue, Fairfax has gone from being just a bunch of shops that generally cater to the Jewish community and elderly Jewish community to a number of super hip skateboard shops, including actual skateboarding facilities within them. And then we occasionally have the problem of people then skateboarding down Fairfax and sometimes knocking over frail elderly folks patronizing the rest of the stores. So it's an odd mix. It's not a massive problem, but I don't know if that would fit in as well with these regulations, and that would aid the store owners that own the stores that cater to skateboarders to be able to say, look, be careful, don't knock over the patrons on the sidewalks of the other businesses in the area. Mr. Buscaino, I don't know if that's envisioned as part of what you're bringing forward, but it's certainly the only problem that we really have in my district that relates to that.
Mr. Buscaino, to close.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. It's obviously, by hearing from my colleagues, this is a citywide problem where all we're asking, I'll be clear, I don't want to ban skateboarding. The last thing I want to do is ban skateboarding. What we're trying to do is prohibit reckless skateboarding. And as a police officer, I would rather have kids, as Arthur Ashcraft alluded to. I agree with Senior Lead Officer Ashcraft. I would rather have kids skateboarding than breaking into cars, committing crimes. But we encourage the skateboarders to use our existing skate parks across the city. And I would also like to thank Diana Nave from Northwest Neighborhood Council. Oftentimes we ask our neighborhood councils to be involved in policy and be heard. And I also want to read for the record the Central Neighborhood Council, led by the President, Linda Alexander. Her letter to me indicated the Central San Pedro Neighborhood Council and its stakeholders meeting of March 13th, 2012 voted unanimously to support your motion in the City Council to require skateboarders under the age of 18 to wear helmets and to comply with all traffic laws. So again, thank you, colleagues. I encourage, again, ask for your aye vote to move forward.
Okay, no more speakers in the queue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. Clerk, next item.
That brings us to item 18, called Special for Cards.
Okay, on that item, I'd like to call forward Arnold Sachs, John Walsh, and Matt Dowd.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. In today's Orange County Register, there's an article, Property Tax Dollars Pile Up. Special district funding varies widely. It goes on to say here that almost 15% of property taxes goes to special district funding. I'm concerned, again, another business improvement district. From 9/26/11, the Downtown News, the Historic Corps has a budget of $1.3 million, and approximately 64% of that goes for maintenance and cleaning up. So that leaves 36% of the budget for other areas for the business improvement district. How is that money spent? How many business improvement districts, how many property improvement districts are there in the city of LA that carry through with the same kind of budget setup, where 36% of that budget goes unsaid? In this Orange County news story, it says, and I quote, "The taxpayer deserves to know where the taxes are being allocated." So don't you believe that the business improvement people that are paying for these fees have the right to know where the money is being allocated and not just writing out a blank check to the city of LA to do what they want and please with the excess funds that's left over? Because again, we know how open and transparent the council is. Do you think these nonprofits or these for-profits that are hired to run these nonprofits that oversee the business improvement districts are as open and transparent? Oh, you know what? Nonprofits don't have to have open meetings. I believe they don't fall under the requirements of the Brown Act.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Take a front page picture of Broad and Rising. I live in a BID district. I don't think people who don't live in a BID district, business improvement district, understand what it is. Okay, you vote one in, every property owner has to pay into the district, and then we get services that we used to get from the city, but now we're paying. Well, you say, John, you're a renter. You don't have to pay. Your landlord does. No. My landlord, there's a formula for rent control to raise our rent every year. And the money that the landlord pays goes into the formula. So I am paying for it. Now you're going to expect me to say, like, you're all a bunch of crooks. No. The BID does a very good job in law enforcement. Now, right across, and I live right where KFWB used to be, across the street from the Capitol Records building, we had a crack house. There was a 5-story building, glass building right there in the corner of Yucca and Argyle. We went to the police for 6 damn months, and they didn't do a damn thing for us. I wonder why. If you went back to Athens 3,000 years ago and there was crime on the streets, it was because the law enforcement was corrupt 3,000 years ago. I'm making no allegations. But when I went to the BID and brought it up, and they're all ex-cops, they're retired cops, they said, we'll take care of it. They went and stuck the LAPD's nose in their own doo-doo and made them clean up our street. And I give no thanks to Charlie Beck. I give no thanks to the mayor. I give no thanks to you. I thank for cleaning up crime in Hollywood, the BID. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Matt Dowd, I don't see him in the chamber, so on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. President, there's been a request to send that matter forthwith.
Without objection.
That brings us to item 20, called Special for Cards.
You know, I want to move, is Mr. Cardenas? Yeah, I want to move and take up item 25 at this time. And let me see, we have a public comment. But Mr. Cardenas, I have one public comment card that's on Mr. Sachs. He's left the chambers. So on item 25.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to move that we receive and file the committee report and substitute and approve the CLA report dated April 23rd on this item, and also move both amending motions to be referred to the Rules Committee.
Mr. Zine.
After discussion with Mr. Alarcon, I don't know if Mr. Alarcon had discussed it with other members of the council, that we were going to send amendments B and C, because there's some concern from the city attorney's office, to send B and C to rules and to approve A, which is the modification on LEHD, because there doesn't seem to be any controversy on that one. So I want to make sure that the city attorney is on board with this, but I was under the impression that, due to the city attorney's concern, B and C of the amendments would be sent to rules for further clarification, and that we would approve A on the communication from the committee.
Well, we have Mr. Alarcon next.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. To clarify what Mr. Zine just mentioned, after speaking to the city attorney, we are in fact receiving and filing report A, section A, and then we are moving forward with the rest of it back to committee.
Well, for receive and file A, we're not going to approve A. Then we have a problem with the initial motion on the issue of people having those and having relatives stay in those units.
We're substituting and approving the CLA report. And
that's covered in the CLA report? Because I haven't been briefed on the CLA report. They were just handed me this morning. So do we cover the family? Can we have the city attorney come to the table?
Your time.
Regarding this matter, regarding the item that we're discussing, number 25, so we can get clarification. Do we have a representative of the city attorney's office?
Actually, our attorneys who are handling the issues in B and C, they've already gone back to their offices. We were in agreement that those matters should be sent to rules. Regarding A, we have attorneys here from our housing department. I don't know if that is what your concern is.
Well, the concern was on the initial motion was on A, the issue of the need to modification, so you wouldn't have a situation that took place with a LAHD managed property in my district, where the person who built it had relatives staying 2 of the units. That's what prompted this whole situation. So we want to make sure that that's covered, and that's my concern. If we receive and file it, then it seems that we're not going to be covering that particular part of it.
But it's going to come to rules.
And inclusive of what's going to rules is this paragraph, Mr. Zine. Develop a clear and transparent tenant disclosure policy that not only applies to familial relationships but also to any other type of relationship that could potentially result in violations of conflict of interest policy, and that could compromise the integrity of fair and transparent tenant selection process, which is what you're referring to.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it go to Neverland. I want to make sure we can put it into play.
No, it's Weston's committee.
Okay, I know we've been dealing with this for quite a while. We've been discussing it and we've been continuing it, and there's some concerns that Mr. Alarcon has. But again, this was brought to my attention by what I consider blatant abuse, and that's why we want to do it. And then it's been expanded since then. So if we want to send it and make sure we have it all covered so it can be done in a proper fashion, that's fine with me.
I don't know what kind of characters they have in Neverland, but Mr. Weston is the president of the Rules Committee, so it'll go to his committee.
Well, I have great confidence in our president. And again, I just got this morning after we convened the meeting, so I was not able to review the policy that was sent by the CLA. Thank you,
Mr. Zine.
So that's fine, Mr. President.
You can call me by my street name, Peter Pan. Okay? Mr. Alarcon.
I would never call you Peter Pan, Mr. President. Just to be clear, we are actually approving the HACLA portions of the recommendations in A, but we had to substitute it to make it clean so that we could move items A or amendments A and B over to rules. So the HACLA portions are being recommended for approval. I concur with Mr. Cardenas. The city attorney was concerned that items A and B, amendments B and C, amendments B and C, certain portions of them may already be in the law, and then other portions may be unclear as to what what code we are assigning it to. So, for example, where there's a reference to a conflict of interest policy, there is no clearly defined conflict of interest policy for the City of Los Angeles. We typically put it in our ethics code. So the city attorney wants the opportunity to clean up the amendments that Mr. Cardenas and I introduced and present them in a way that captures our intent most accurately.
So for clarification then, recommendation A on today's agenda will be received and filed. There's a motion to adopt the CLA, the recommendations contained within the CLA report dated April 23, and to refer recommendations B and C on today's agenda to the Rules Committee.
All right, let's open the roll on this item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, next item is item 20.
That's called special for cards, sir.
Okay, and Matt Dowd doesn't appear to be in the chambers, but Mr. Norajanian is. If you'd please come forward.
Item number 20. Good morning, City Council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. Actually, I endorse with item 20 because this item 20 is rather progressive, I believe, city government legislation, and actually it leads to creation of healthy homes, creative granting funds for Let's Save for Kids Sake grant program, and actually and requires transferring funds from healthy homes production program of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development into Los Angeles City grant funds, which are called Let's Save for Kids Sake grant program. It's actually progressive legislation which I very much recommend, endorse, and actually it requires some funds, and over here it has authorized the general manager to administer funds in accordance to the provision of HUD's Office of Healthy Homes and lead hazard control in United States Conference of Mayor grants. But actually, lead hazard actually poses a great danger for the safety of Angelino residents, and actually, I asked for city council members, to create more resolutions concerned to lead safety and lead testing, inside Los Angeles homes, so that people would be able to, who would need lead safety devices, testers, would be able to get them from at least city government, so lead testing would be done on.
Thank you. Thank you. No speakers in the queue on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Next.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 21 called special for cards.
Mr. Norajanian, if you could come back. You have 1 minute, I'm told. And Mr. Walsh, please come forward. Mr. Sachs appears to have left the chambers. Go on. 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's set the clock.
Good morning, respectable city council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. Actually, I endorsed resolution 21. 21 is a rather progressive resolution which allows transfer in local housing trust fund. It changes local housing trust fund and various building and equity growth in neighborhood grant funds from non-interest bearing funds to interest bearing funds. Actually, interest bearing funds maybe create more interest. Actually, involves local housing funds development and stuff like that, and actually reflect more capitalist approach, towards keeping those funds up and growing, and actually. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org, or Walsh Confidential. An amazing 20%, according to Quantcast, of our people who come to our website are under 18 years of age. Can you believe it? 1 out of 5 under 18. This doesn't directly involve the housing scandal. That was scandal of the month last month, the housing scandal. And we'd like you, in fact, if you want to catch up, just put LAHD and big damn scandal in Google and you'll get this. Thank you, everybody. HollywoodHighlands.org. We had a wonderful day yesterday and we took over the city and left it pretty much the way we found it. Screwed up. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 22, called Special for Cards.
Mr. Sachs, he's not here, so no speakers in the queue on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That brings us to item 23, called Special for Cards.
It's called special by Mr. Walsh. Is he out of town? Out of time?
Yes, sir, he is.
So I see no speakers on the queue on this item. So again, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That brings us where?
That brings us to item 24, scheduled for closed session, sir. I do believe there is one card on that matter.
And that card is turned in by Matt Dowd, who I do not see. So, Sergeants, if we could quickly clear the chambers and go into closed session. I do not want to lose a quorum. Let's quickly clear the chambers, and we will be going into closed session.
investigating a series of bizarre and disturbing attacks that have left children in cities from coast to coast injured and fearing for their safety. As Global's Anna Gabauer tells us, the young victims were targeted simply because of the color of their hair.
They better, and while we begin with an Eyewitness News exclusive disturbing video of a gay man being beaten in Queens.
The individual was attacked simply for his orientation, and we're just not going to tolerate it.
The word hate is just unexcusable. It's a word that shouldn't be used, and to hate somebody for the color of their skin is just not right.
It creates fear among all of the community members.
I think it's wrong how people discriminate against others just because of the way they prefer people, as in gays or just their skin color. It's wrong, and something needs to be done. A hate crime is any criminal act directed against a person based on the victim's actual or perceived nationality, religion, sexual orientation, disability, gender, and especially race. Examples of hate crimes include acts which result in injury even if the injury is slight, threats of violence that look like they can be carried out, acts which result in property damage, any criminal act or attempted criminal act, including property damage directed against public or private agencies.
The suspect can spend up to 1 year in jail, and if it's a felony, it could either be between 2 and 4 years for a prison sentence.
If you believe a hate crime has occurred or will occur, you are very much encouraged to contact the Los Angeles Police Department or the We Tip hotline. Public cooperation is often essential in solving hate crimes. We Tip hotline, 909-987-5005.
Thank you.
Okay, we're in open session now on item 25.
Excuse me, sir. It's item 24.
Item 24.
And if I may,
Yes,
in the
you
case
may.
entitled Kathleen Washington versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation for settlement in the amount of $950,000.
Okay, so on item 24, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Forthwith on that item. That brings us where, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
Okay, consider them posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
Announcements, members. Announcements, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow night in historic downtown San Pedro, it's First Thursday, where the businesses and the restaurants revived here. I want to welcome and actually encourage my residents to attend First Thursday in historic downtown San Pedro. We are going to have a reception welcoming our new Captain Nancy Lauer at the historic Warner Grand Theater tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And amongst other, the art galleries will be open, kicking off at 5 o'clock in partnership with the ACE District and the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Angelinos who are continuing to buy their Spay and Neuter Saves Lives license plates. And I just wanted to announce that one of the urgencies that we've been trying to push is for the state of California to give an extension beyond June 9th for us to get to the 7,500 license plates that we need for them to start printing those license plates. And this afternoon, Governor Brown will be signing the bill that passed the legislature in order to grant that extension so we could have more people in California can have more time to buy these special license plates that will create a permanent funding for spay and neutering throughout California. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank a very busy celebrity Cesar Millan for agreeing to go to the signing, and also Pierce Brosnan, who actually is the artist that they picked his art to be on those license plates as well. They're going to be there with the governor, and if everything goes well, I'll be there with them. Thank you.
Congratulations. Mr. Englander, you have an announcement?
Just quickly, as the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee, I wanted to remind everybody that we'll be continuing the budget deliberations today at 1 o'clock in Council Chambers.
Anyone, members, any more announcements? Okay, everybody rise for adjourning motions. Adjourning motions, members. Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Today I'd like to adjourn in memory of Mabel S. Tyler, who was a devoted member of Mount Zion Congregational Church in Cleveland, Ohio. She was born in 1923 to Clarence and Catherine Webb in Pendleton, South Carolina, and received 2 master's degrees from New York University, specializing in textiles and clothing, and a master's of education from John Carroll University. She worked for more than 30 years for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District as a devoted teacher and department head for 5 different schools. She was deeply devoted to her career and was a role model and mother to many of her students. She was also one of the few teachers to include young men in her home economics classes. She loved her grandchildren, and her affection to them knew no bounds. She was a lifelong member of Mount Zion Congregational Church, and her love for God never wavered. She is survived by her son Ralph, daughter Kim, sister Marion, daughter-in-law Zoe, 7 grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and a host of other loving friends and relatives. She will be sincerely missed.
Other adjourning motions, members? Okay. This meeting is adjourned.